Cuba really wants change, and it wants to act like put its big kid pants on and cooperate with the world, these are the steps you need to take to make that happen. But at least he did something. I was happy about that. And the media won't be, but I was thrilled that at least he did something. I don't think it went far enough personally. Just my 2 cents, but that's why I'm here. So welcome back into the Mark Cox Show. Graham Renz is with me right now from the Show Me Institute. Glad to have Graham back in the studio with us. How you been?
I'm doing well, Mark. I did mention it before. I did get married, too. So
congratulations.
That's
I did not know that.
Yes, it's
That's awesome.
I'm getting used to jewelry now. So
I twisted my wedding ring for weeks after I first got it. I know that. You get used to having that on there. We're going to talk a little bit about reforms to economic development subsidy programs. You and I have talked about the downside of TIFs and all that stuff in the past. But the study that you guys have put together kind of, I can hear a cash register ringing in the back of my head. Somebody somewhere was entering all the numbers and adding up how much the city has given away in attempts to subsidize its economy over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the price tag is staggering. As some listeners might know and have maybe heard me talk about, our government is wasting a lot of time, a lot of effort, and even more money on trying to subsidize businesses to grow the economy. Over the past 16 years, the city alone has spent almost $800 million, nearly $1 billion, subsidizing businesses, mostly just to come over from the county line or just shift around within the city. So that's $800 million that could have been spent on basic city services like police, like infrastructure, like things that we're having issues addressing right now.
What's the time frame?
The time frame for reforms coming through?
No. For that $800 million.
Since 2000. Since 2000.
Really? So that doesn't even include that bad Rams deal or anything?
No, this is just through tax increment financing, or TIF, and tax abatement, which are pretty much just tax credits, tax subsidies that all sorts of businesses get, oftentimes to move just down the block.
Well, in a city where all they seem to want to do is raise taxes and raise wages through false wage floors, and then they see people leave, the only way they can entice businesses is by giving them some brief break from the taxation and for 10 years or whatever. That seems to be what this boils down to.
I mean, a really plausible story is that the city spent so much time and money giving away so much money over the past few decades that the only way to pay for basic city services is to raise taxes. With the Metrolink sales tax, the base sales tax rate in the city is about 9.2%. It's higher than New York City. It's higher than LA. It's higher than San Francisco, and that's not even including all the little special taxing districts that you stack on. So oftentimes you'll be paying almost 11% in some parts of the city. But thankfully, there's a conversation starting on ways to reform these tax policies, these tax subsidies.
Willingly? That's amazing.
So this is very welcome news. Unfortunately, there's two issues. The first is that these are self-proclaimed guidelines.
Okay.
So these are not adopted policies. The city's going to, of course, conduct a multi-million-dollar study to figure out what reforms are best. But even the reforms that they're proposing, even if they were to follow them, really aren't going to make a big dent in the city's abuse of these tax incentives.
No.
Unfortunately, even if they were adopted, I wouldn't think the economic forecast, the fiscal position of the city would change that much. So what we're doing at the Show Me Institute, and what I'm doing, is looking at more effective reforms that the city could pursue to really take a bite out of its subsidy programs. And so,
no, go ahead.
Sure, I'll just mention two briefly, and we can move to wherever. The first is the city should really have some strict job creation numbers. What happens right now is you give out a TIF. It could be for $50 million. The developer says, I'm going to create X number of jobs. And all they have to do is say that. There is no auditing. There is no going back and looking if this actually happened. There's no making sure that these jobs weren't shifted around from another office. And so a really, really easy and simple reform would be to make sure to audit these books, to make sure that these jobs are actually new, being created in the city. And if they're not, that the developers have to pay back the subsidies.
Right. No, but there's never a follow-up that I'm aware of.
Absolutely not. Not even at the state. The state compiles a big report, and it doesn't even audit the numbers. So the best numbers we have are probably overinflated. But but they don't even look all that good in the first place. So things are just a mess right now. So this is a really simple reform that we could put in place. It wouldn't impact how many subsidies we could give away. It wouldn't tie our hands. It would just make sure that if you're getting public money, if you're dipping into the public purse, you've got to come through on your promises. And right now, our policies don't make sure that happens.
And the thing about that argument is that I've always argued that if it's economically viable to start a company, you already have a business plan in mind. You know what you can sell your widget for. You have a general idea what your profit margin is. You have startup costs unless you're moving an existing business. Just like the U.S. government handing out subsidies to Solyndra and some of these alternative energy companies that ended up going bust and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money being gone. The only way you can exist in an environment like that is if everybody plays by the same rules. But if St. Louis is giving away TIFs and the county's not, or the county's giving away TIFs and St. Louis isn't, then it's an uneven playing field. I'd like to see more regulation on a statewide basis to limit some of this so that you do even out that playing field.
Absolutely. It's not something I plan to discuss right now.
No,
but
I understand.
It should be up on the website soon. Is one other reform, one big motive we hear for why so many incentives are given out is that downtown's competing with Clayton and various county municipalities. And one way to every time we throw $10 million to have an office building move a couple blocks. The only people who win are politicians who get to cut ribbons, right, the company that gets a $10 million subsidy, and everybody else loses. The taxpayers lose. And we need to make sure that the taxpayers aren't on the hook for bad deals like that. And the economy doesn't grow. So what we need to do is, one option would be to create a pact or some sort of truce or agreement between the city and the county that says, hey, if somebody in the city threatens to leave to the county, you got to agree not to give them a subsidy and vice versa. Or we could structure this deal in all sorts of ways. But the idea would be to call a truce to this race to the bottom with other people's money.
I'm not going to draw you into this. But what we really need is somebody from a large overlord organization like a city-county merger who could just decide who gets what. I'm just teasing.
Hopefully there wouldn't be anybody.
That is exactly what they're after. They want to divide. They want to erase those city-county lines, and they seem to think that some board or some individual in Clayton will pick and choose where businesses go. It's a utopia. I don't think it'll ever happen, but you're not here to talk about that today.
Ultimately, the market should be deciding where businesses locate to be sure that the economy grows instead of politicians picking winners and losers. And so ultimately, you're right. It should be the market that drives these decisions.
Great point. Graham Renz, always good to see you. Congratulations on your nuptials and your move into the closer to school, right?
Closer to school. That's one way we can put it, yeah.
That's good. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on,
Thank
Mark.
you. All right. Coming up next, 314-969-9797. Let me get some of your phone calls. Lots to talk about here today. Hey, did you see where they found that teenage girl guilty of manslaughter for suggesting her boyfriend commit suicide and then he did? That happened just today. I think it has probably a huge impact on the social media lessons we need to be teaching to our children. Also,